Joe Biden has fallen off the face of the earth. Whilst Donald Trump is enjoying his moment in the sun after his historic Iowa caucus win, Joe Biden is nowhere to be seen. Sky News All-Stars Andrew Bolt, Adam Crichton and Piers Morgan investigate the reasons for Joe Biden's absence and ask whether his cognitive decline has finally sidelined him for good. Joe Biden has been missing in action since before Christmas. The president went on vacation in December and has since failed to return to public life. Many commentators are asking whether this is due to poor health or a planned strategy by the Democrats to keep attention away from Joe Biden, says Sky News All-Star Andrew Bolt.
With the US presidential election, right, it's just 10 months away now, media coverage is dominated by stories about Donald Trump. You know, who's the likely challenger, and it's almost nothing about Joe Biden, who actually is the president right now. It's like the election is about whether voters want Trump or not. It's not whether Biden deserves a second go. It's like the invisible president, not there, a non-entity. He's the absent president. In fact, that could almost be literally true. Because you take the last month, the 81-year-old leader of the most powerful nation on earth has taken 4 short holidays over that time, plus weekends, not held a single White House event so far this year, which is weird when the US is now facing 3 hot wars at the moment, Ukraine, Gaza, Red Sea against the Houthis, and when Iran is fired at or near a US consulate in Iraq this week. So what's the story with this president? Let's cross to Peter Doocy, the Fox News White House correspondent, following Joe Biden at the moment. I've wanted to talk to Peter for a while because no other White House reporter can cut through the White House spin so clearly with just one question. I'll just give you one example. Peter questioning the White House spokesman about Biden's boast on stopping inflation. He's done it. And also a hint of what Joe Biden thinks of Peter's scrutiny.
On lowering prices, you said earlier that the actions the president has taken have worked. So is it your sense that when people were home for Thanksgiving, catching up with their family members, they were saying to each other, can you believe how much more affordable things have gotten?
So honestly, I wouldn't, I hear the question, but I want to make sure this is very clear. We take that very seriously.
Will you take questions on inflation then?
Let's move. Thank you. Thank you all.
Do you think inflation is a political liability?
It's a great asset. More inflation. What a stupid son of a...
I talked to Peter Doocy a short while ago. Peter Doocy, thank you so much for your time. I see you've had to pull over. You're chasing down the president, which comes to this point, actually, because I see Donald Trump at this end of the world anyway, making constant speeches. I see him constantly campaigning. I see him constantly in court making speeches and etc. But I don't see Joe Biden much at all. What is he doing?
It's been pretty extraordinary, Andrew, because we're almost 3 weeks into the new year, which is an election year, and the president, Biden, still has not had any official events, any public events at all at the White House. And I've been with him the whole time since Inauguration Day. That's very unusual. He does have a few stops in swing states. We saw him pop up at a business in Pennsylvania. He's going to be here in North Carolina tomorrow to give remarks in a electorally competitive place later this year. But nothing at the White House, despite everything that is going on. And so that just seems to be the strategy. They want to show him out and about and not at the White House. Maybe it's a way for them to look forward as opposed to look, hey, there's the guy in charge of the policies that maybe are not very popular right now, according to the polls.
But the White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre says there's nothing to see here.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, none of his constituents have seen him doing anything. Who decided that the American people are best served by seeing less of the president?
The president is active. The president is doing what he needs to do to deliver for the American people.
It seems the strategy of hiding Joe Biden away is hurting his public image and approval rating, says Sky News All-Star Piers Morgan.
Well, President Biden is historically unpopular. His latest approval ratings are disastrous. A majority of Americans, including the majority of Democrats, think he's too old to run again. Inflation has whacked Americans in their pockets, and there's general disillusionment about the state of the country. And of course, there are two major wars that have erupted on his watch. For many voters, Trump is looking less like a democracy-threatening demagogue and more like the entertaining showman who spits in the face of the establishment and presided over the country when everything cost less and none of the America's allies were at war. Of course, a lot can and will happen between now and November. Trump.
Former White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer agrees, saying although voters may not like Trump as a person, they like his results.
Contrast between the two campaigns, and I think the American people, when you look at the polling, start to say, I might not have liked all the style of Donald Trump and some of the rhetoric, but I like the results. I was safer, I was more prosperous, my cities were better, my counties were better. And I think that's a big, big difference that Donald Trump has going for him. The other thing that's the big X factor for the Democrats, Andrew, is the following. We had a poll come out this weekend by ABC News where only 28% of Americans said that they thought that Joe Biden had the mental prowess to be president, right? They don't believe, and the problem with that is that nothing gets better with age unless it's cheese or wine. And right now, Joe Biden is suffering, just the reality of becoming and getting older, both mentally and physically.
Joe Biden's cognitive decline is becoming more devastatingly clear by the day, which is particularly significant being an election year, says the Australian's Washington correspondent Adam Crichton.
Democrat strategists also want that to be the case. Look, we just don't know. Certainly last time Biden won by a significant amount in millions of votes. The question is, can he do it again? I mean, I doubt it personally. I think Trump has a very good shot of winning this year because of the decline of Biden, which is just so obvious to everyone in this country, and also the state of the economy. People are furious about inflation. Sure, the rate's coming down, but it's still 4%. It's still double of what it should be, and prices certainly aren't falling, and people's incomes have not gone up by anywhere near as much. So there's a lot of anger in this country, and also there's a number of wars brewing overseas, which is of great concern. I mean, I was surprised tonight at the little caucus meeting that I went to just outside.
Piers Morgan agrees, saying Donald Trump will likely win because Joe Biden is 81, going on 1,000.
If he wins the nomination, as seems likely, he's up against basically a man who looks like a corpse. I mean, Joe Biden is so unpopular. His approval ratings are completely tanking. He's 81 going on 1,000. Why wouldn't Trump be able to beat him?
And commentator Dave Rubin says Joe Biden's senility, not his age, is his major issue.
Everything. People don't vote on what really matters. We vote on what we can feel, right? And I think because of that, people are going, Donald Trump, he seems back, there's energy there, and there's just no energy with Biden,
Trump,
and nobody likes Kamala. That's
but Trump has lost every election except 2016.
Piers Morgan says Joe Biden has sent out his wife and vice president to front the cameras and campaign on his behalf following clear cognitive struggles.
Sense that whether we monarchist Brits like to admit it or not, the President of the United States is the single most important person in the world, commanding the world's mightiest military and holding the purse strings of its biggest economy. The President could end Israel's war in Gaza with a phone call or decide if Ukraine gets the backing it needs to beat Putin. At least that's the general idea. But the current Commander-in-Chief is 81, seemingly going on 181, after a lifetime of distinguished public service as a pragmatic politician. And in my view, a thoroughly decent human being, President Biden looks increasingly unfit for service. And with the president in visible decline, his re-election campaign is, well, transitioning. You might say its pronouns are changing before our very eyes. The two most important women in President Biden's life have been sent out to jumpstart the 2024 race. Wildly unpopular VP Kamala Harris said this.
We've got 10 months to go until the election. And increasingly, and you've seen it even just this week, we are all starting to narrow in on what this election will mean. And it's going to be the choice between what is about respecting our democracy, what is about competence versus chaos.
Well, the Vice President is right. Competence is crucially important, but her own boss has trouble getting up the stairs and can't seem to find a way off a stage. His frequent verbal and physical stumbles are the subject of both comedy and concern. Most people responded with laughter and derision, for example, when First Lady Jill Biden said this about him.
I see Joe every day. I see him out, you know, traveling around this country, I see his vigor, I see his energy.
To those who say I can't vote for Joe Biden, he's too old, what do you say?
I say his age is an asset.
Energy and vigour. Not quite what I'm seeing. You can make a plausible case for the wise old statesman with a firm hand on the tiller, but campaigning on Biden's vigour may well fast-track Donald Trump, who does have a lot of vigour.
And with Joe Biden's concerning cognitive and physical decline, many commentators are saying it's only a matter of time before he is tapped on the shoulder and replaced before campaigning heats up, says Sky News All-Star Joe Hildebrand.
And it should be only a matter of time before Joe Biden accepts that he can't possibly run and gets tapped on the shoulder and stands aside for a Democratic candidate who can actually beat Trump, because this is all looking absolutely catastrophic for the Democrats. It is staggering to think that, according to the sort of 3D chess theory of their campaign strategy, that they were actually trying to kind of box Trump into a corner where he became the Republican candidate because he was so oppressed and so martyred by all the lawsuits and the prosecutions against him, that he'd get that sympathy vote and that would put him up into contention because he was the only candidate that Joe Biden could beat. Well, guess what? Doesn't look like Joe Biden can beat him anymore. And again, it goes back to all those knuckle draggers, all those posh, supposed intellectual, smart lefties who thought that once Joe Biden beat Trump in 2020, that it was all over. But this is the thing, though. Like, and again, I kept saying,
the Democrats. It's thanks to all of the civil cases that Trump is probably going to be president again.
Sky News All-Star James Morrow doubles down on this, saying there's a very good chance Joe Biden won't be the Democratic nominee come November.
Yeah, such vigor, so totally with it. Performances like that are why, along with Hunter Biden trouble that is still brewing, I think there is a very good chance that Joe Biden does not make it to November, and indeed steps down or is pushed aside for a new, younger candidate.
And with talk of Joe Biden unable to run, Adam Creighton has thrown a wild card into the mix, saying Michelle Obama is fourth in line to be president.
Now, you mentioned earlier Joe Biden's mental capacity and, or rather lack thereof. Have a look at this clip. This is just from the other day where Biden got completely confused thinking he'd had a photograph with someone who wasn't even in the state. Have a look at this.
Michelle Swan mentioned Congress, Deborah Ross. Where's Deborah? I just had my picture taken with her. Oh, she couldn't be here, actually. That's not true. I got it mixed up. And she has, she fights very hard for the people of this district, and she's up in Washington right now.
Now, I still can't believe they would put Biden up as the nominee from the Democrats. Michelle Obama has been getting a little bit of publicity lately. Is there any truth to the rumours or any credibility to rumours that perhaps she could be put forward? Or is there anyone else, or they really are stuck with Joe Biden?
Well, look, I certainly wouldn't rule her out. Indeed, betting markets, which we talked about before, those same averages showed a big jump for Michelle about 2 weeks ago when she gave a podcast interview where she said she was scared of the prospect of another Trump presidency. So I think she's something like the fourth favourite to become president. It's hard to believe, but I think she's sitting on about 12%. And look, I mean, I would not rule it out. I mean, remember the party itself, the Democrat Party has quite a lot of power to pick someone, I think, themselves, if say in August at the Democrat convention, the president decides that he's not going to run again for some reason. And I think that's a very plausible outlook, I would say. And so I would not rule her out. I mean, it's not likely. I think probably Gavin Newsom from California, the governor there, is more likely should Biden step down. But Michelle is a good choice, I think, from their point of view.
Just quickly, Trump.
With a weak president and opinion polls in decline, it seems the Democrats are in desperation mode, attacking Trump with everything they have. But evidence would suggest the harder they attack, the better Trump fares, according to Adam Creighton.
But to your main question, look, I mean, I think Trump is, as I put it in that piece, a vessel through which the American public channel their rage against the establishment. Because as we pointed out, he's certainly not the ideal candidate. He's got all these criminal charges. I mean, his campaign rhetoric is is at the very best strange, certainly not out of the traditional political playbook, and yet he still thrives. He's gone from, as you said, 14% chance of winning to 42% chance in winning in 12 months. And I think because he's attacked so relentlessly by the university system, by the judiciary, by politicians, by the media, of course, they are the commanding heights of the modern economy. They are the elites, and ordinary Americans see this, and they hate those institutions, and they see these hated institutions attacking this one man over and over again. And let's face it, many of the attacks, I'm sure even Democrats would agree in private, are very exaggerated, and ordinary Americans see that, and so the natural response is to stick up for this guy, to defend this guy, and they're going to do that probably by voting for him. And they look past all of his flaws. And I think actually, all the attacks on Trump have been very, very counterproductive for the Democrats, I think. So look, remains to be seen what happens. I think it's going to be close, personally, the final outcome in November. But Democrats certainly haven't helped their cause, I think, by heaping all of this abuse. I mean, for instance, comparing him to Adolf Hitler, that's a new one now. I mean, that's clearly just absurd, and it happens all the time. So yeah, that's just one example of that phenomenon.
Now, you mentioned earlier